Parker found the listing online. Cheap rent, fully furnished, and close to work. It almost seemed too good to be true. The landlord, Mr. Thompson, barely looked at him as he signed the lease. "It's a quiet place," he said. "You'll like it." James moved in on a Friday. The apartment was small but cozy. 2 bedrooms, a tiny kitchen, and a living room with an outdated TV. By Saturday morning, he'd already met her. Her name was Emily. She was sitting on the couch, sipping coffee and flipping through a magazine. "Morning," she said. "You must be the new tenant." They talked a little. She said she'd been living there for a while. They fell into a routine, coffee in the mornings, TV in the evenings, until he mentioned her to the landlord. It was a week later. Mr. Thompson frowned when he asked about Emily. "No one's lived there for months." A cold, creeping feeling spread through James's chest. "That's not possible. I talk to her every day." Mr. Thompson gave him a strange look. "Are you sure?" James almost asked him to come inside, but when he turned to the apartment, the blinds were shut. The living room light was off. He suddenly felt foolish. "Never mind," he muttered. James locked the door behind him. Emily wasn't there, but her coffee cup was, half full, steam still rising. James spent the rest of the afternoon convincing himself that he wasn't crazy. Maybe she wasn't on the lease, but still lived here. That night, James sat on the couch, waiting for Emily. The apartment was silent. Then, the bathroom door creaked open. James jumped. Emily stepped out. "You okay?" she asked. James hesitated. "Where were you earlier?" "What do you mean?" "When the landlord came by. You weren't here." She tilted her head. "I was in my room." James hadn't gone in there. Something about it felt off. "Look," Emily said. "I know this place is a little weird, but you'll get used to it." "Used to what?" She smiled, but it was hollow, sharing. A shiver ran down James's spine. He glanced at the coffee table. Her cup was gone. He hadn't seen her move it. He couldn't sleep. He lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening. Then, a soft knock. James sat up, heart pounding. It came from the second bedroom. He wasn't going to answer it, but his feet moved before he could stop them. He crossed the hall and pressed his ear to the door. Silence. He knocked once. "Emily?" Nothing. He turned the knob. The room was empty. No bed. Just a bare mattress, covered in dust. The air was thick, stale. He backed away slowly, but in the corner of his eye, he saw something. Her coffee cup. Then, the door slammed shut. Someone whispered his name. He spun around. The room was empty, but he wasn't alone. The air was thick with a presence. He shoved his way out of the room and locked the door behind him. He turned on every light in the apartment. Then, he did the one thing he had been avoiding. He grabbed his phone and searched. There wasn't much. The apartment complex wasn't famous, just an old building with several owners. But then, an old newspaper article. Emily Graves, 26, was found dead here after neighbors reported a foul odor. He shut his phone off, his whole body shaking. Emily was real, but she wasn't alive. He needed to leave, now. He grabbed his keys and bolted for the front door. His hands fumbled with the lock, but just as he twisted the knob, the TV turned on. Static filled the apartment. The screen flickered. Shadows danced across the walls, and there in the reflection of the darkened screen, Emily. She stood behind him, her eyes dark and hollow. "Why are you leaving?" she whispered. James's scream caught in his throat. The lights flickered. The air grew thick and cold. Then the TV shut off, and she was gone. Hit subscribe and don't dare miss what's coming next. Or the next scream you hear might be your own.